Welcome back to Adventures in Freeze Drying for Beginners. Thank you so much for watching my channel. I really appreciate it. If you have not subscribed, please subscribe. Click the bell below if you want to see my recipes and my videos coming out regularly and get that notification as soon as they hit. Today we are doing pumpkin or squash puree. I love butternut squash. It's delicious. You can make pumpkin pies and stuff with it the same as you can pumpkins. This is a Gerendale pumpkin. It's one of my favorite types of pumpkins. It's great for eating and baking. The color is cool to sit out on your porch in the fall instead of that orange pumpkin, along with an orange or a white or other gourds. They're just a beautiful pumpkin, but we're gonna puree this, freeze dry it, rehydrate it, and make some pumpkin chocolate chip cookies and see how that goes. Stay with me. Today I am just going to do my pumpkin, but you would follow these same steps for your squash. The first thing you need to do is get your pumpkin cut in half and get the seeds out of it. The bottom of my pumpkin had a crack in it, and this is soft to the touch. I am going to throw this part of the pumpkin away, but the part that is still solid, I'm going to go ahead and keep and get that baked to make my pumpkin puree. So if you have a pumpkin that was cracked, you can still use it. If you catch it fairly early, just cut off that soft spot. You don't know what could be growing in that. Not a good idea to put that into long-term storage. Once you have your pumpkins cut in half, and I even quartered one side of it here, and you get the seeds removed, you want to put it cut side down in a baking dish. This one's a little harder because I did cut off the soft part of the pumpkin. I've got this over here because I'm going to, one, save some seeds for planting next year because I love my Gerendale pumpkins, but I'm also going to research and make sure I remember correctly how to make some baked pumpkin seeds with some salt on them, and I'm going to bake some of those up because they are a fantastic treat to have some pumpkin seeds. But you're going to want to add 1 cup of water to your pumpkins, and you're going to bake them at 350 for 1 hour. So I'll see you once these are baked. You could do this in an Instant Pot. If you just had a little pie pumpkin, it fits in your Instant Pot. Same thing, get it all prepped, put it in there, 10 minutes on high pressure, let it just naturally release. You're good, you're done. But this Gerendale is too big. This is not going to go in my Instant Pot, which is why it's going in the oven. Before taking your pumpkin out of the oven, you need to make sure that it is tender, that a fork easily sticks into it. Then you know it's ready to make pumpkin puree. I always let these cool until I can handle them without burning my fingers, so I'll see you once these cool off. My pumpkin's cooled off enough that I can now handle it without killing my hands. So the first thing you want to do is simply take it out of the pan. Sometimes the skin will just peel, other times not so much. Sometimes I like to just take a spoon and scoop as much as I can, and then just take a knife in right beneath the skin here. And you can just cut that little bit of skin off, throw it away so that way you keep as much pumpkin as possible. I have as much pumpkin as I'm going to shove into my food processor. I'm going to put that on, make sure it's plugged in, and we're going to go ahead and just blend that down into a puree. I like to open the lid and just check this. I do not like to add any extra water to my pumpkin puree. I like it to be a little thicker like a store-bought. It already has more water in it than a store canned pumpkin will. Once that is pureed, remove it from the blender and start the process over. I have a bunch more pumpkin here, so I'll be doing this several times, and I'll see you when I have this all pureed. I want to keep track of how much 1 cup of pumpkin will be when it's freeze dried and how much 2 cups of pumpkin will be when it's freeze dried. So I'm going to go ahead and measure up first 1 cup of pumpkin in my measuring cup and get its mass wet. And then I'm going to measure up 2 cups of pumpkin in a measuring cup and get its mass wet. And I'm going to keep those separate on my tray to freeze dry. As you can see, my 2 cups of pumpkin are on the right, my 1 cup of pumpkin are on the left. I'm going to put my lid on this and freeze like this. My other 3 trays, I am going to make sure I do not have more than 2.5 pounds of pumpkin per tray, and I'll put lids on my trays and get them frozen solid. Before I start in on my food in my freeze dry, I wanted to show you there is some condensation around my ring, which is perfectly normal. There's a little bit of humidity in the air still, even though it's fall. And so when something's super cold, just like your can of soda pop sitting outside, it's going to get condensation on it. So just notice that's normal. So my machine's been running for almost 47 hours. I did add 12 hours of extra dry time, and there's like about an hour and a half of extra dry time left. And I'm checking this right now for cold spots. And everything is 98 degrees or warmer on this tray, 94, but nothing is under 90. The tray itself feels warm, it feels light. Bottom trays are a little bit cooler, but still in the 80s. Nothing is colder than that. So I am going to call this load done, and we'll meet in the kitchen to get this bagged up and try to reconstitute a little bit. Okay, this is back in my kitchen. I've got my freeze-dried product, which is very light, and we're going to go ahead and get this out of the trays. And I want to powder this because I think for long-term storage, and then the ability to just use some to make what I need will be really important. You'll notice my parchment's on the bottom still, that it's kind of stuck to it, but that lifted right off the tray. I am going to go ahead and just kind of put a hand here, break off a little bit of it, put it right into a Ziploc bag. I'm just going to use the rolling pin method to powder this. And then I'm going to break off another bit. I have my before weights here, where my 1 cup of pumpkin was 254 grams and my 2 cups of pumpkin was 488 grams. So I'm going to weigh those now so I know the mass of 1 cup and 2 cups. So when I need 2 cups of pumpkin or 1 cup of pumpkin for a recipe, I know weight-wise, mass-wise, how much to get out of my bag. So let's go ahead and get that done. Okay, so to powder this, it's going to be really simple. You're just going to take your rolling pin and kind of crunch it and roll. Okay, I got these 2 bags pretty much powdered down. There's still some bigger chunks. I'm not too worried about it. I'm going to use mass to get 1 cup or 2 cups of pumpkin puree. So we're going to go ahead, and I'm going to store mine in a gallon Ziploc Mylar. I like having the gusseted bottom so the bag stands up on its own. Nice thing with coming out of a Ziploc bag, woo, I've got pumpkin powder on my face, is I can just put the end in the Ziploc in my Mylar, shake that in. I will add an OA and vacuum seal this, and then we'll get dealing with my 1 cup and 2 cups. Using my scale, I'm going to make sure I have 24 grams of pumpkin powder, since there's still some powder left in this bag from last time. I want to make sure I end up with exactly 24 grams. Which I'm almost there. There we go. I'm to 24 grams. So there's a little bit of extra left in here. which I haven't sealed my gallon Ziploc bag yet, so we'll call that good. So if I do my math correctly, 254 minus 24 means I need to add 230 grams of water. So I'm going to measure in a measuring cup, and I'm going to reset that tare. I'm going to put 230 grams of water. Okay, so that says it's exactly 230. Actually, now it's reading 231. I'm not going to add all this right away because I'm not sure it's going to need that. You can always make a thicker pumpkin if you want it to be more like a store-bought canned pumpkin versus a fresh pumpkin puree. But let's go ahead and add at least half of this in here. And I'm going to start stirring that up. This is a pretty instant rehydration here. I would say that's about store-bought consistency right now. Just pretty thick. So if you wanted to use more of a store-bought consistency, that's where I'm at. I'm going to add just a touch more. Just in case there's some lumps in there that aren't rehydrated. I'm surprised at how much this is coming right back to a puree texture from a powder. It's still a little thick. If you want it to be more of a fresh pumpkin puree, it's a hair thinner than a store can of pumpkin right now. Add a little more. And keep stirring. Kind of surprised at how much water it keeps taking on, and this isn't getting runny yet. Like, it is still definitely a little thicker than my fresh was. I'm going to keep adding a little more water because that's still thicker than I really want it to be. A lot of my recipes call for fresh pumpkin purees, so I don't want this that thick. I want this to be a little bit thinner. Now we're getting close. I still see a few lumps and stuff in here. I would say that is awful close. We let that sit a couple more minutes. I am going to take a paper towel, just dry, and wipe off the inside of my Mylar bag where I'm going to want my Mylar to seal. You don't want to use a wet paper towel because you don't want to introduce any moisture, but that pumpkin could keep my seal. So if you've been having problems sealing, it could be that you've got food particles up where you're trying to seal, and getting that wiped off before you try to seal it is a good idea. I went ahead and labeled my bag that it's pumpkin puree, the month that this was done in, and that 1 cup equals 24 grams, and to add about 230 grams of water. Amazingly, my math added up even on my 2 cups minus where it came out to. It was just double the same amount of water. So if I need 2 cups of pumpkin, I'll just double this. I had 2 cups of pumpkin puree left from when I did this fresh the other day, and I'm getting ready to see if we can't turn this into a pumpkin pie filling, freeze dry it, and then reconstitute it and bake a pumpkin pie, which with the way this just reconstituted, it looks pretty much the same. It's a hair lumpier. I'm gonna let this sit for like an hour. But I would say this is a success, and I can't wait to see what I can do with this reconstituted pumpkin. So I would say this is a success today. I'm planning to use this to try to make something. So I'm just gonna take a little taste to see if it's as good as when it was fresh. So if you want the vegetable pumpkin to eat with a meal, and that is every bit as good as when it was fresh. Thank you for joining me at Adventures in Freeze Drying for Beginners, and we will see you next time.